So I have checked the next prompt in the side quest, and the choice I have gone with is rereading a favorite book, and I'm going to be cheating just like a little bit on this one. How can you cheat at rereading a favorite book? Let me explain. So, years ago, I bought and read Sabrina, Volume 1, The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, which is like a horror take on the classic Archie comics. You've probably seen the Netflix show, which is actually quite different from the like book comic-y version of the story. But I read this volume 1 and I anxiously waited for volume 2 to come out, and they never published volume 2 like by itself on its own. Instead, they published The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina Occult Edition, which contains both volume 1 and volume 2 in one bind up with the TV show characters on the cover. So I'm going to reread this, but in the new bind up, and just continue right along finishing volume 2. So is that's I'm still counting it as a reread because this I read, I think, in like 2019, something like that, and that is just republished in the bind up of 2, even though like half of this will be a fresh read. The first part will be a reread, and I do feel the need to like reread it before I just take on the second like part, because I feel like it has been so long and it was so different from like the TV adaptation that I do kind of feel the need to have that refresher. Plus it's like, you know, comic book style, so it's a pretty quick read. I forgot I had this in here. This was like, I got this when I went to Salem, Massachusetts, this past fall, and this was like a little like mini one-shot comic following Salem the cat from the series. So I just stuck that in there. Probably won't be rereading that, but yeah, so I guess I'm like kind of cheating, but not really cheating. I'm just, you know, reading a different version, right? That counts, I think. So that's what we're gonna go with for this prompt. Hello, I am on the floor in front of the bookshelf for this one. So yesterday I went to a local library book sale and I did find a few things. So I just thought I would share what I got. The first 2 things are ARCs, so they're like advanced reader copies of books. So I picked up Rise to the Sun. This I read the final version of. I actually listened to the audiobook. And I just thought it would be fun to have the little like advanced reader copy version of that book, because I really did enjoy it. So I've got that, and this one is also an ARC, and it is an ARC of Middle Game by Shannon Maguire. I feel like I've heard mixed things about the final book. I haven't actually read this one, but I saw the ARC and thought that would be cool to have. I like, you know, seeing the differences between ARCs and their final versions, including like the cover, obviously very similar to the final version for this, but just slightly different. So that is those. And then my boyfriend found The Jungle by Upton Sinclair. I haven't read this yet. One of those classics I've been meaning to get to and have not read. Kind of a little scared of it, to be honest. Yeah. If you know, you know. And then I have How to Change Everything by Naomi Klein. This is essentially the like I don't want to say children's version, but I guess like youth version of This Changes Everything by Naomi Klein. It's like a how to better the world with the climate change situation going on. And I have been meaning to read this despite the fact that it's like a little bit young for me. And so I was super happy to see this copy at the sale. And then these two I knew nothing about before. I just kind of saw them and picked them up, and that is The Shore, a novel by Katie Rund. Cover looked really cool, and it just seems, I'll read the tagline, I guess. One summer in Seaside, steps away from the bustling boardwalk, the Dune family faces an unknowable future and copes with loss through sisterhood and friendship, humor and hard work, romance and escape. So it seemed like partially they're grieving, but also like a fun summer situation. So hoping this ends up being good. And then this one I feel like I have heard of maybe, and the cover was just amazing. And it is Flying Solo by Linda Holmes. And in this, it says, a woman returns to her small Maine hometown, uncovering family secrets that take her on a journey of self-discovery and new love. In this warm and charming novel from the New York Times bestselling author of Evie Drake Starts Over, which I also have not heard of and have not read. So hoping to enjoy this. Both of these seemed like summery reads, and I guess that's kind of what I'm leaning towards now that it's almost May. Can't believe we're this close to May. So yeah, only found 6 books. 2 of them were ARCs, but yeah, excited for those. Good morning. I come to you in my PJs. I wanted to give an update because it is the 25th of April now, and it is crunch time, less than a week left. I am 60% of the way through Gone Girl, which is the book recommended by a friend prompt. And then I still haven't started Sabrina yet, but this one should be fairly quick to get through because it is the comic book graphic novel situation. So I'm hoping to fly through this really quickly. My plan is to, I don't think finish Gone Girl today, but get a good chunk of the way through that. And definitely get a start on Sabrina and see how far I get in maybe an hour, and then I'll know how long, it'll take me to finish the whole thing. So that is the plan, and then after this, I'm not sure how many quests I will have left. I feel like I'm getting towards the end, because we have now found the thing we were going after. So yeah, we'll see. I will keep you updated, and see you in the next clip. Hello, hello. I'm officially back to blonde, and the readathon is sadly officially over. I ended up reading 12 books, which I'm pretty proud of because normally I'm more of a 5 book per month kind of person. So yeah, 12 is a lot for me. So I'm gonna go through what I ended up reading, what I planned to read and didn't, but still read a little bit of, and yeah, kind of go from there. So the first book I read was The Cycle of the Werewolf by Stephen King, and I really enjoyed that one. I think if you enjoy Stephen King's other books, you would probably enjoy this. It's, a little dated, with language that it is used, as are most of Stephen King's books that were written, further back. But if you like his work, I think you would enjoy it, and it's a super quick read. So yeah, that was book number 1, and I read that for one of my classes, and it was for the shape-shifting class, form wolf, wolf on the cover, title, or author's name. And then for the book that had to match your clothes, I went with Unearthly by Cynthia Hand, and I just stuck to wearing purple to match that cover. That was for the Art of Illusion class. And I actually really enjoyed this book once I got into it. At first it was a little slow, and I wasn't sure if I was going to really like it, but I am intrigued enough to continue on with the series, and I do plan on finishing the series this month. So that was book number 2, and I think I'll put like a running page count up here. I think the Stephen King one was like 128 pages, and this one was 435 pages. Then after that, for Sonics and Divination, I had to read a book with clouds on the cover. I don't have the second book in this series physically, but I did listen to the audiobook of Hollowed by Cynthia Hand for this prompt, and I really enjoyed it. Once again, I do plan on finishing the series. I do own Boundless. I just didn't get a chance to read this one during the time frame we had. So yeah, really enjoyed those. Not sure off the top of my head what the page count was, but I will pop it on the screen. And those were actually the only 3 that were requirements for the Illusionist Rogue calling that I chose. I feel like 3 is really like not enough based on how much I read, but I know in the fall it ends up being about 5, and that's like my average number of books read, so we're gonna stick with just the Illusionist Rogue. However, I did read a few books for other classes, and I started the side quest. I did not finish the side quest, but I do plan on finishing the side quest this month in May. So yeah, the next book was actually for the side quest, the alchemy one, just in case you're watching in the future. And that prompt required a book with night in the title, so I listened to Emma in the Night by Wendy Walker. And I did enjoy this. It was kind of like psychological thriller-esque. I didn't enjoy it as much as I was hoping I would, but I do think I would recommend it if you like that kind of style of book. The next book I read was The Promised Neverland Volume 3. I do have, I think, up to Volume 6 in this series, so I do plan on continuing this one. If you never read The Promised Neverland before, we are following a group of children who are living at an orphanage that turns out to be a farm for like demons. So they're basically raising the children for the demons to eat. And now the kids are trying to escape. That's kind of the general premise of the story. So no spoilers because it's the 3rd volume, but highly recommend if you enjoy manga. And this one was also for a side quest. I'm trying not to be spoilery about what the specific prompts for the side quests are in case you do plan on doing that yourself. But I believe I read Lore Olympus for a side quest as well. I really enjoyed this one. It's like a modern retelling of Greek mythology. So if you're into that, I feel like you would either love it or hate it, because you're either going to enjoy the modern retelling or you're going to hate what it's doing with the like classic mythology. I really enjoyed it, but I'm not super into the Greek mythology stuff. But yeah, definitely going to be continuing on. This actually made me buy the second one, so I think this is going to be read very, very soon as well. So yeah, Lore Olympus. I think the prompt for this one was your most recently acquired book. And I just saw this at Target and decided to pick it up. And then I believe I read this one for the prompt about having 2-letter E's in the title, and that was Ready Player 2 by Ernest Cline. I definitely enjoyed it. It wasn't as good as the first one, but I didn't completely hate it the way I feel like a lot of people did. I do think you would still enjoy the book. Do I think it needed to happen? Probably not. I was perfectly happy with how Ready Player 1 had ended. But if you're looking for that extra bit of story and want a more of a wrap up to that, this would be the book for you. Yeah, that's all I really have to say about that. And then for the shuffle and point one, I ended up taking all the audiobooks I had available on Scribd, going up and down and pointing, and I ended on The Picture of Dorian Gray, which is a classic I have been meaning to read for a really long time, and it was very, very good. I think it is definitely one of my favorite classics now. If you don't already know, The Picture of Dorian Gray, essentially you're following a man named Dorian Gray who has had a portrait made of him, and he essentially wishes that the portrait would age and get older while he stays young and youthful. So that is the main premise. Another kind of psychological thriller-esque book. Very, very good. Highly recommend. For another quest prompt, I ended up reading Better Together by Christine Riccio. This by far took me the longest to read out of all the books because I just wasn't super enjoying it. I'm glad I read it, but I wish it was better, unfortunately. Just not the book for me. And I really loved the first book she wrote despite its flaws, and this one felt like it kind of was missing some of that personality almost. It felt a little forced, so not my favorite. We follow two sisters who have been separated by a divorce, and they end up meeting up together during, retreat, to kind of reevaluate your life, essentially, and then they decide to switch places, and what I didn't really enjoy was the magical realism aspect that kind of is involved in this one, unfortunately. So yeah, Better Together. This, I think, was the longest book I read as well, and I believe it's 448 pages. And then the next book I read was the one recommended by a friend, and that was Gone Girl. My boyfriend insisted that I needed to read Gone Girl, and I've never actually seen the movie, so we do plan on watching that soon. The book is fantastic, definitely recommend. The ending is definitely not satisfying, but I think that's kind of the point. So yeah, I'm sure you all have heard of Gone Girl. 5 out of 5 stars. Absolutely love that book. And last but not least, and this was another one for the quests, and that ended up being Sabrina Occult Edition. I think this was to reread a book, and I had the volume 1 previously, so I reread that portion because I had really forgotten most of what had happened, and then continued on through the rest of this, which contains 6 through 8 as well as 1 through 5 out of the original comics that were released. I really, really wish there were more of these. There is a chapter 9, but that's it. So I am left unsatisfied, but truly, truly love this story. So yeah, I will put a grand total of pages read here. I'll put some stats on the screen for how many classes I did and how far I got in the quest. So yeah, that's about it. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you in my next video. Bye.